Hey, what's going on, everyone? This is Mitch. Good Wednesday evening to you all. I hope you guys are doing well out there tonight and had yourselves a fantastic day. And I hope you folks have been having a great week out there so far, as we're about halfway through it, of course. It's been a very active start to our work week with this significant storm system that swept across the entire lower 48. But we are finally done with that. It gave us one last pretty solid punch in areas of the Northeast today. We saw some videos off Twitter and social media of some big time flooding in like areas of New Hampshire, kind of the very small section of the coastal regions of New Hampshire and Maine, and looked pretty significant. So I hope you folks are faring well out there this evening. But we are pretty much done with it now. We have a small system cruising across the middle of the country. We'll speak a little bit on that, but half of this video is going to be discussing the impacts of this next significant winter storm and a significant severe weather threat. And this is all being caused by another high-end storm system. So we're going to talk about the impacts of that. How much snow could you see? The winds combined with this making blizzard conditions across areas of the Great Lakes and the Midwest. We'll speak on that. And then we'll get very detailed on that severe weather side of this and just talk about everybody in the country as far as the impacts from this storm system. After we move past that, we'll talk about our next storm system for the end of this coming weekend into the early portion of next week. This could bring a winter storm risk for areas further south as Arctic air kind of pushes south and southeast. This will push all of our energy to the south and our storm track basically further south. So we'll speak on who could see some winter weather that has not seen it this winter. And it could be pretty significant because it could be falling at some pretty cold temperatures. So we'll get very detailed on that because we are starting to get close enough to it to where we can. And then we'll just talk about how cold it could potentially get from this Arctic air mass that's already beginning to work into the country. So we'll talk about all this. We'll get very detailed, utilize those timestamps. I've had a couple people mention they're not coming up, so I'll make sure that they are up. But I certainly hope they're showing up for you folks because I spent an extra 15 minutes after I dropped in the video adding those timestamps for it to really help you folks. So definitely utilize those. If you folks have not subscribed, certainly consider doing that. Like the video if you like it. If you guys got anything that I can pray about or pray over, as always, please put those in the comments below. Let's get rocking and rolling. So what's going on out there right now? Where that's all of our energy from our big time storm system number 2 that's going to sweep across the country. This snow that you're seeing moving over Iowa into areas of like northern Illinois is dropping a quick couple inches. Probably some gusty winds associated with this. But not a big deal. This system was kind of mentioned on and off throughout the last few videos. It was kind of right in between big storm system number 1 and big storm system number 2. And here it is just cruising across areas of the Midwest. Could deliver maybe an inch of snow, 2 inches of snow, maybe in southern sections of Wisconsin, northern sections of Illinois overnight, and eventually, cruise into further east in the sections of the Great Lakes region, but not a big deal at all. So we're not going to speak much more on that besides that. And then you see the energy out here. There's a frontal boundary moving across the western U.S., creating some heavy, even wind-driven snow out here in like Nevada, certainly the Sierra Nevada, and even, let me know what you're seeing out in Salt Lake City if anybody's tuning in from that area. It looks like some snow is falling. But of course, this radar is very sensitive. I've had a couple people mention, whatever radar you're showing, there's actually nothing hitting the ground. And I know sometimes it shows green over certain areas, blue over certain areas where nothing's really falling. But anyways, let's move past that. Watches, warnings, and advisories. This mustard color down here, that's high wind warning. So another period of very high winds coming up for this area of the country. Same thing for Southern Cal. The pink is winter storm warnings. You already have enough high confidence on this storm system moving in where they have issued winter storm warnings across Omaha and surrounding counties of eastern Iowa, western Nebraska. You got winter storm watches in this teal color for almost the entire state of Iowa, everybody in northern Illinois. And yes, Chicago, you have a winter storm watch. There's high confidence that lower Michigan is going to get a substantial winter storm from this, and in most of Wisconsin also. Northern Wisconsin, the UP of Michigan, still a question mark, but pretty much all the counties in extreme southern Minnesota are have winter storm watches. Wind advisories up for areas of the Mid-Atlantic and Northeast, and then just a lot of winter weather alerts across the western U.S. Snow levels are lower. We even have one lone blizzard warning in Nevada. So this system's pretty much cruising through the western U.S., and you will really start to see it evolve across the middle of the country over the next 24 hours, most likely. So let's start off by looking at the players on the field. So we're done with this system that just moved on. It's not really on your screen anymore. There's that piece of energy associated with this quick hitting snow that you see right here. So that's the energy associated with it right here. And then here comes our next significant storm system right here on your screen in the southwest. So we get this going, and this is digging down right into here. Okay, it's not as vertical and long as the last storm system we dealt with, but still compact and definitely a significant storm system. And as this is moving, right here begins to take on that negative tilt that we've been talking about over the last couple weeks a lot. And here it is kind of tilting that way, and it's kind of tilting to the right. When these things start to tilt negatively, which is to the right like this, they immediately start to move more north and bring a lot of dynamics with it. Basically dynamics meaning you're probably going to have a severe weather side to it. And if there's cold air involved, and there's a lot of it involved, you're probably going to have a major winter storm with this storm system also. And if you get this back off your screen and you keep this moving here, this thing fully begins to just make a transition to negatively tilted and eventually wraps up, and you probably get some sort of deepening surface low right into here, probably creating blizzard conditions. So here it is, digs down, takes on that negative tilt, and then cruises right along and brings a ton of impacts to the eastern U.S. Now, what does this look like on the surface? What everybody wants to see. So we'll start this off tomorrow evening. You see some blue beginning to enter your screen here in Nebraska, and then this is when this really starts to crank up. So we start to get into the middle of the night tomorrow night. Into Friday morning, heavy snow begins to move into eastern Nebraska, northern Kansas, snowing in Lincoln, Omaha. Snow is beginning to move into northern Missouri. Snow is moving into Iowa. Then you take it all the way to Friday morning. This is when snow starts to pick up across Iowa. Still snowing back here in eastern Nebraska. The cold Arctic air is beginning to catch up with this moisture. So I really want to watch this for Friday morning if we get any winter weather all the way down here in Oklahoma. We keep this going, and there's that back end rain changing the back end pretty heavy snow in northwest Arkansas, southwest Missouri, Springfield. It looks like it goes from rain to snow. But if you focus up here where the heart of this winter storm is going to be, you see this low beginning to move up here. It's kind of right along the Mississippi River right here, and then it deepens about 6-7 millibars right here, and it's right here in southern Illinois at this point. And this point, it's about midday Friday. You got heavy snow moving all the way up to Green Bay, taking over pretty much Lake Michigan, Chicago. To me, this would be pretty heavy snow over the area. It's just raining down here in the southern sections of Indiana and Illinois, but it's snowing pretty heavily up here in northern Indiana, northern Illinois, and then southwest Michigan. You keep this going. This low deepens to a 975 millibar low right into here. So at this point, the rain snow line is getting very close to Chicago, and it's about to pretty much switch to rain to just about the entire state of Indiana. At the same time, folks, you got to consider this and remember this. There's Arctic air coming down on top of this. So this is just going to have a lot of cold air that gets wrapped all the way around this low pressure. So you keep this going, you're getting at this point to Friday evening. The European model keeps this all snow in Chicago, all snow in extreme northwest Indiana, all snow for pretty much northern Illinois, Milwaukee up to Green Bay. And if you stop it here, this is Friday evening, you got a 973 millibar low north of Indianapolis, and the cold air kind of crashing down into the low. And this would be a raging blizzard in Chicago if something like the Euro was to unfold. This is a very deep land low out here. So you keep this going. Big time winter storm starting to move into Michigan, but that low is really cutting because it's so strong. It digs down here, and as soon as it starts to strengthen, it tries to move more north. Kind of like hurricanes in the tropics. The stronger they are, the more they try to fight to move more north. That's what they do. It's the same thing with these lows over land. So you stop it here. It's late Friday evening. Big time winter storm over lower Michigan. But, it's even trying to switch to rain in extreme southern Michigan at this point. Still staying all snow in Chicago, Milwaukee. And to keep this going, and, you're getting in the middle of the night, Friday night, heavy snow starts to move into Canada. And, where exactly is the track of this low going to go? If it moves a little bit further north and northwest, it would be more of a substantial winter storm for the UP. If it moves a little bit further southeast, then it could keep most of Michigan all snow and maybe start to bring Ohio into it. But, I got viewers from Ohio, folks. This is all rain. You might get some, I'm sure you'll get some back end snow just like you've been getting with a lot of these systems. Ohio's just got nothing but these little small events so far. But, you take a look at the whole entire evolution of the storm. Here it is, Friday morning, Friday midday, Friday afternoon, Friday evening, Friday night, getting into late Friday night, in the middle of the night. And, the back end of this is where your strongest winds are going to be. So you'll have winds screaming out in the north right here. Heavy snow falling from Green Bay to Milwaukee all the way down to Chicago, and it's still snowing pretty heavily, and then it finally pulls off. And then Arctic air cruises over the Great Lakes in the later half of the weekend, and then you start to get some pretty aggressive lake effect snows off all the Great Lakes. Superior, Michigan, Huron, Erie, and Ontario. It could be a substantial lake effect snow event. We just got to watch, especially off Lake Huron, Erie, and Ontario, but we'll watch. It could be a bigger deal for the other Great Lakes too. So that's the life of the storm. We are in range of the NAM. The NAM goes out 60 hours. So we'll take a look at how it evolves this, and snow starts to break out over these areas. I'm sorry, this is right now. Let's get this on out of the way. And here comes the storm right here. I was like, what? That looks kind of weird. Snow starts to move in late Thursday night into Iowa. Same situation. Omaha, Lincoln, right down here, northern counties of Missouri. And you keep this going. And this wants to bring kind of a wintry mix into northern Illinois. So the NAM is a little bit further north, and that's something you got to watch with the NAM. Sometimes the NAM sniffs out a warm nose pretty well with these low pressures. So you can't discount the NAM. You really can't. But heavy snow moving all the way into Minneapolis at this point. I mean, all the way up into central Wisconsin. You keep this going. Starts out as a burst of snow in Chicago, but, the NAM says you guys are going to switch to rain in Chicago. And then it switches abruptly to heavy snow Friday afternoon in Chicago. And then it starts to snow pretty heavily in northern Indiana, even northwest Ohio. Look at this. Based off the NAM, okay? Heavy snow in all lower Michigan, and then snow over pretty much all the upper Midwest, the Great Lakes region. And this would, back in moisture would switch to snow all the way down to Indianapolis, heck, maybe all the way down to Evansville. And then this heads out. But, I mean, you stop it here. This is the middle of the night, this coming Friday night. And you have an all-out blizzard over a large section of the Great Lakes region. If you don't have consistent blizzard conditions, you have on and off blizzard conditions. So what about the snowfall forecast from this? And we kind of lost it here, and we're going to have to switch it to that. This is the blend of all models and what it's showing right here. And this is just through Sunday morning, right in here, okay? So the blend of all models is going to be a little bit more conservative, and I like that idea. You guys definitely let me know in the comments that you guys did not get as much snow as what was forecasted with this last storm system. And, I don't blame you one bit. If they call for 6 to 8 inches of snow and you only get 1 to 2 inches, that is a bummer, especially if you're a winter weather fan. So I certainly get it. But the blend of all models always goes probably more conservative. So for it to be pumping out these kind of totals, in the Great Lakes region, the Midwest, this is a pretty big deal, I would say. They're going for a foot of snow in Milwaukee, I would say. 5 to 6 inches in Chicago, but could be much more than that. I would say that's probably going to be on your lower end if that's all you get. But once you get into Michigan, going for 1 to 2 feet of snow in certain areas of lower Michigan. And then it starts to add in that lake effect snow because we take it all the way to Sunday morning. There's going to be just scattered 1 to 2 feet amounts between the storm system that pulls in and pulls out, and then the lake effect snows that start firing off Lake Superior up here in the UP. But you look at Wisconsin, this is a heavy hitter. It's really looking like a heavy hitter up here. The blend of all models makes it a pretty good hit all the way up here in Minneapolis. 7 to 8 inches of snow. That's not a forecast. Des Moines, it says a good 6 to 7 inch snowfall from this. But there's a sharp cutoff in Illinois and Indiana, from the northern portions of those states to the southern sections of those states. And that's kind of been the common theme of the last couple storm systems. And that looks like that's probably going to be the same similar theme with this one also. Now, going forward here, we'll take a more of a zoomed in look at some of these snowfall predicted totals from the National Weather Service. And unfortunately, a lot of these National Weather Service places do not have great graphics up right now. I think that'll totally change when we get into tomorrow. So we'll just take a look at what we do have on the table here, and we'll kind of zoom into some states. But the National Weather Service here in Nebraska does have a pretty good graphic here, which is sort of makes sense because this is sort of the beginning stages of this storm working west to east. And here it is, going for about 2 to 6 inches of snow in Grand Island. Fremont, 4 to 9 inches of snow, and just stop the screen if you need to. Just about 4 to 8 inches in Lincoln. They don't have a great graphic up in the National Weather Service out of Omaha, unfortunately, right now. But based off what I'm seeing here, I think they're going for probably about 6 to 8 inches of snow, maybe a little bit more in Omaha. So we'll see what happens with that. But we can only really look at this now. And this is sort of the rest of Nebraska. And there it is. Good 6 to 8 inches of snow. It looks like they're forecasting in the Omaha area. But of course, it begins to increase once you're starting to get into Iowa. And, here's northern Missouri. Northern Missouri is going to be a weird state where I think you got to be in the far northern counties to see any appreciable snowfall accumulations, anywhere from 2 to 5 inches of snow. But we could get that back end sort of wrapping of the snow that could bring a couple inches of snow as far south as maybe Columbia, Missouri. But, we've been watching this storm sort of in the St. Louis area for some time. And originally we were thinking, hey, this could be a pretty decent hit for St. Louis, but I just think that you're going to miss this one too. And, unfortunately, the one coming behind this one might just be too south. But we still need to figure out some information on that. But you still could get it. They're calling for between now and Saturday morning, maybe an inch and a half of snow in St. Louis. We'll see what happens. We move a little bit further up here and look at Iowa. Iowa's going to get hit hard again. There's high confidence in Iowa. Just scattered, depending on where you are, 5 to as much as 12 inches of snow forecast. The heart of Iowa, Des Moines, Ames, you're probably going to be on the mid-grade or higher end of what I just said. But you certainly get into the eastern, northeastern portions of Iowa, and you're going to get a good 8 to 12 inch snowfall from these areas. I'm probably going to have one last great video on this before it really gets cranked up. So we'll be able to zoom in on a lot of these little kind of smaller areas where it has towns and cities on these maps. When the National Weather Service sort of upgrades some graphics for us. But a very wide, a little bit more zoomed in look than that first snowfall accumulation map that I showed you guys for the upper Midwest. And here you go. The blend of all models here going for about 6 to 8 inches of snow here. So that's what they're going for there. And, you go up to Milwaukee going for about a foot, 13, 14 inches. I do not have, and let's see if we can get a new graphic here. When I pulled it, yep, it's new. It was glitching out on me in this area when I was preparing this video about an hour ago, but it looks like it's fixed itself. So here we go. And the blend of all models ain't much different. This is the National Weather Service, and you compare this with the blend of all models kind of predictions on this, and it's not a whole lot different. It looks like around the Milwaukee area going for around 11 to 12 inches of snow. Janesville, kind of the same thing. Just the southern half of Wisconsin, I think, is going to get a pretty substantial winter storm from this. And I know these same areas I read in the comments did not get near as much snow as what was predicted. I saw someone say like in the Chicago area, even Milwaukee area. I saw a couple comments. Well, they go, they were predicting 11 inches of snow in Chicago. I don't know of anybody that was predicting 11 inches of snow in Chicago, especially the professionals. They clearly on the National Weather Service pretty much mentioned that Chicago and Milwaukee were going to struggle just being really close to the lake. But I know there was a lot of areas in southern Wisconsin, northern Illinois that certainly did not get near as much snow that was forecast to get from this last storm system. But I think this one's going to really deliver. I do. But as you can tell, pretty much all of Michigan's going to get substantial snow from this. And there's going to be blizzard conditions with this too. And let's talk about that. So we'll start this off in the middle of the night tomorrow night. We'll get into Friday morning. Winds are already starting to gust to 30, 35 miles per hour across the Midwest. We keep this going. We start to get into, this is around Friday evening. Snow is falling in a lot of these areas, especially back into here. Snow is falling up into here, and you got, 40 to 50 mile per hour wind gust. It's showing a 50 mile per hour wind gust, potential for 50-mile-per-hour wind gusts in like the Green Bay area with snow falling as we get into our Friday evening. Okay, you see this weird little gap right here? That is our low pressure, where winds are much more calm, sort of like the center of a hurricane, the very center of a hurricane. You keep this going, and we start to get in the middle of the night, Friday night and Saturday morning, and all-out blizzard develops across the Great Lakes region. Look at some of these wind gusts going up to 40, 50, 55, 60 miles per hour across the Great Lakes region. And then we got snow wrapping around back here with gusty winds. And then we take it to Saturday morning, and these winds are still ripping with snow flying around. I don't know what's up with these weird glitches from the National Weather Service, but it is killing me. So sorry for the sloppiness of the video. But you keep going and you get deeper into Saturday morning. You get into Saturday about midday. I mean, look at Detroit, 50, 55 mile per hour wind gusts blowing around out here at Great Lakes region, just getting blasted with heavy snow and windy conditions. So no doubt they will issue blizzard warnings for somebody in this area. No doubt about it. So we'll continue to fine tune that. We'll have you another update on that in the morning, and hopefully we have some graphics pulled up that we can show you guys from the National Weather Service. But let's talk about the severe weather side of this. We have a slight risk of severe weather for tomorrow, and this is really going to get going tomorrow night. But as of now, there's a slight risk, no enhanced risk as of right now for eastern Texas, a very small section of southeastern Oklahoma, basically the entire central and northern half of Louisiana, western sections of Mississippi, and central and southern Arkansas. You got a level 2 out of 5 risk. Tornado risk is a 5% risk of a tornado within 25 miles in a given location in the Brown area. And the wind threat, there's a 15% risk of winds exceeding 50 knots or higher. That's 55 to 60 miles per hour within 25 miles in a given location. That's always the same criteria. And there is a higher risk of hail with this. 15% risk of hail exceeding 1 inch in diameter or larger in this yellow area. So moving forward, and you look at Friday, enhanced risk, we talked about this this morning. That's a level 3 out of 5 risk from basically the Sandhills of North Carolina all the way to southwest and the eastern sections of Alabama. This includes like Montgomery. You can pretty much include Atlanta in this, Macon, Augusta, Columbia, all the way up to Fayetteville, Orangeburg, Florence. So pretty much almost all the way down to Savannah. This will tweak some. So what is the big risk with this? Well, at day 3, and this will be totally different when we wake up tomorrow morning. For day 3, all it's going to show is that, hey, in the red area, there's a 30% risk of severe weather within 25 miles in a given location. That could be anything. But I can tell you it's probably going to be driven off wind especially, and then tornadoes for sure. And then you see the black outline region right in here with the checker marks going through it. That means there's a 10% risk of significant weather, which could be significant hail, 2 inch in diameter or larger, significant tornado, EF2 or higher or stronger, or either winds exceeding 65 knots or higher, which is around 70 to 75 miles per hour and mile per hour reading. So this is certainly a big deal. It's another big time severe weather threat. And let's talk about the ingredients going into this. So kinematic-wise, huge mid-level jet. So when you see this, just think there's a ton of wind energy in the atmosphere. And here it goes, diving into the central portion of the country. Early Friday morning, we are getting into Friday about midday. And this is an over 100, 120 knot mid-level jet screeching across areas of the deep south and mid-south, bringing a lot of wind energy with this. So once again, you got a lot of wind energy aloft above our heads. This is going to mix to the surface in the form of probably sporadic 40 to 60 mile per hour wind gust across the deep south in the eastern U.S. And then it does the same thing that the last storm system did, and all these winds begin to move over the eastern U.S. Now, this isn't winds at 120 knots at the surface. That would, be equivalent to over a Category 3 hurricane over land. But this is way above our heads in the upper levels of the atmosphere. But some of these winds do mix to the surface, and we'll talk about the low-level jet here starting when we get into tomorrow, and we'll talk about how strong the winds are in the low levels of the atmosphere, which is about a mile above our heads. But this is a lot of ingredients for severe weather for this as far as winds. And then you look at dew points. What about that moist sector? This has been a question today and in the weather community. How deep is this moist air going to be? Is it going to be dew points like in the low 60s or upper 60s? That makes a big difference as far as those Cape levels. But you start to get into Friday. There's that moist sector building all the way up to almost Birmingham, where you got a dew point of 60. And then it builds throughout southern Georgia, Dew points well into the low 70s in the central and southern Florida area. But you guys probably will be displaced from the main lift for thunderstorms to fire. But that didn't stop you guys from getting a lot of storms yesterday, that's for sure. I think the tornado, right outside the Tampa area, I think was there. But we're getting into Friday evening. Dew points quickly rise into South Carolina to the 60s, into southeast North Carolina, and then the atmosphere basically swooshes off or swooshes out, and we're waking up Saturday morning with much more stable conditions. So what about the Cape levels in response to those higher dew points? Well, here it goes. You're never going to get really high Cape levels in January. But of course, you keep this going, Cape levels could spike, maybe up to 1,000 joules per kilogram. And this is the Euro, so we're not in short range model guidance really yet. We will fully be into it tomorrow for Friday. But you see Cape levels Friday afternoon begin to rise over 500 joules per kilogram. Down here in Florida, they're over 1,000 joules per kilogram. And that's why you got to worry about tornadoes down here. So this is our instability levels, kind of our storm fuel. And then it briefly spikes into eastern Georgia, central South Carolina, probably Friday night. Same thing with eastern South Carolina, southeast North Carolina before heading on out and us being done with it as we kickstart our weekend. So how can these storms unfold? Well, here's a look what the HRRR model could potentially look like. And first off, we'll start it off. This is around 6 p.m. tomorrow night. And nothing's going on. I can already hear a lot of people in this area of the country thinking by the time we get into tomorrow night, well, they were calling for severe weather and nothing happened today. Well, watch what happens when you get a couple hours deeper into the night. This is around 10 p.m. tomorrow night. Look how these storms basically come out of nowhere in areas of Arkansas. You start to see a lot of storms explode in southeast sections of Oklahoma. Look at these storms in northeast sections of Texas. In fact, we might be in range of we're getting in range of the OOZ HRRR model now, so we can actually show that. So this is the latest HRRR model. So we got new, fresh information, and they don't really get going until about 10 or 11 p.m. And there's those storms firing up. We got to watch these storms right in here and around the Mississippi Delta region. These could be spinning, and then the main line gets going in the wee hours of the morning, Friday morning. And look at the snow immediately behind it falling in central Oklahoma. And, we'll talk more on this probably tomorrow morning, but there could be a round of snow for Tulsa to Oklahoma City as we are getting after midnight tomorrow night into our Friday morning that could deliver maybe some light snowfall accumulations. This really shows you how dynamic this storm is. All right, you got a line of severe thunderstorms, basically severe weather ongoing Friday morning across Arkansas, with snow beginning to enter the northwest portion of the state also. So very dynamic weather. It's snowing in Tulsa around 5 a.m. Friday morning. We'll see if that actually verifies. And then the last frame of the HRRR model. Look at this. You got snow moving into Fayetteville, Arkansas, Springfield, Missouri, with severe thunderstorms in the southeastern portion of the state. But you're waking up Friday morning with severe weather marching eastward, and we could be waking up to some active conditions like in Jackson, maybe like Monroe, Louisiana, and then moving eastward, certainly in the Jonesboro area, starting to move into Memphis, and then some strong thunderstorms in the Boot Hill, Missouri also. And then, we look at the updraft Felicity swath, and we're just going to keep it on this. Well, we can go on and switch it. The reason we're having so many glitches, guys, is because I prepared this video, and then I had to walk away from it for about an hour. So all my panels are having to reload when I pull them up. So that's why it keeps doing it. But we're getting into tomorrow afternoon, tomorrow evening, tomorrow night, and then that's when the updraft Felicity swath begins to show rotation in any of these thunderstorms that really get going here in the warm sector in Arkansas, southeast Oklahoma, and even northeast Texas. I know Mary lives in northeast Texas. You want to be aware of some severe weather after midnight. Well, it might not be after midnight. It might be an hour or two before midnight tomorrow night, but, it really starts getting going after midnight throughout Arkansas. So some of these could be spinning for sure. And then we go on and move further eastward. And we'll just keep it at the 18Z HRRR model just because the OOZ is not really done loading yet. But line of storms could be sweeping through these areas. Man, I'm sorry for the sloppiness, guys. I do apologize. We were bound to get a video like this at some point. So, all right. So let's see if it's going to work. Let's do this. All right, we're working here. So, it's not always going to be a professional look, folks. You guys should probably know that by now. But we're getting into Friday morning, and there's the latest long-range HRRR model waking up Friday morning. And these storms, are certainly looking pretty scary as we're waking up Friday morning, and, kind of worrisome, but we have to see how they actually look like when we wake up. There's some question marks about Friday, but you can see the tail of this line of storms moving past and moving east of the Mississippi River. We got storms out ahead of it that could be producing. There will definitely be a lot of strong winds out ahead of this storms regardless. And if we kind of back it up to 18Z, which it will not let me show for anything, folks. So unfortunately, we're not going to be able to show it, but maybe we can just show the NAM. But if you keep this going throughout Friday, here's the NAM, kind of evolving the same way as what we stopped at with the HRRR model. And just a lot of shower and storm activity ahead of this main line. It begins to sweep through and move through Florence, Alabama, Huntsville, Alabama, up to Nashville. And we just got to watch all these storms out ahead of it. But we certainly need to watch these storms down here too, because these will be tapping into a better, I would say a more high-end thermodynamic atmosphere, better moisture levels down here and better CAPE levels down here. So we need to watch all these cells down to here, even though, on this particular run, they don't look very scary, I guess I would say. But you keep this going, we're getting into Friday afternoon, and we have to see what this does as we get into North Carolina and South Carolina. And heck, even the OOZ NAM is running now. But here it comes Friday afternoon. The Carolinas starts off with a lot of rain. And then we're just going to have some sort of storm action moving through the Carolinas. The NAM, I can tell you the NAM doesn't look that worrisome at all. Well, we need to get in range of the HRRR model, which we will be tomorrow. So let's go on and start moving towards the rest of the eastern U.S. And we'll start this off midday Friday. Here comes this storm system sweeping across. We've already talked about the severe weather threat for the deep south. A lot of rain in between the snow and the severe weather down here, moving across the Ohio Valley, the mid-south region. And then we're going to get some heavier interior northeast snow again. Probably getting into our Friday, into our overnight hours, all the way into Saturday morning. You can see, these favored areas in northern PA, sort of southwestern, the Finger Lakes regions of New York, southern tier. Certainly up here, could start out some snow in the Catskills, the Adirondacks, the Green and White Mountains, Berkshires could start to get some snow in the middle of the night, Friday night, and could be quite heavy. Could be kind of like the last system we just dealt with. You'll get a quick front-end thumping of maybe several inches of snow from this. And then it's still snowing very heavily as we're waking up Saturday morning, but you can already see it switching to rain in southern New York. But you can already see the Arctic air trying to funnel in behind this storm system, switching any leftover moisture to snow Saturday morning, even all the way into western PA. Northwest flow kind of event begins to set up across the higher elevations of West Virginia, snowing pretty heavily across the interior and northeast. And probably another pretty big winter weather event across Maine, but it's one of those winter weather events that starts out as winter weather, then goes the rain, and then cold air immediately surges in behind. You start to get some backside energy, and this kickstarts some pretty aggressive lake effect snows, like I mentioned, probably in the later portion of our weekend, getting into our Sunday, especially off Lake Ontario and Lake Erie. And this band could shift into Buffalo as we get into Sunday afternoon, as this Arctic air really starts to funnel in from, I guess you would say, the southwest to the northeast, and this would favor more so Buffalo. So we need to watch how this band will set up, but it's really starting to look like we're going to have some lake effect snows, potentially some significant lake effect snows off Lake Erie and Lake Ontario with this as this moves in. So what about impacts up here? We look at winds. It's the blend of all models. Look at these strong winds moving in. We're getting into Friday morning, 50 mile per hour wind gusts moving across the mid-south, the deep south. This sweeps across the southern Appalachian Mountains. We're going to have high wind warnings again. We're going to get winds probably gusting to 50, 60 miles per hour. And then this continues. I think the strongest winds might be over the Ohio Valley this time, because this trough is digging, but not as far south as the last one. So, another period late Friday night of very strong winds, even where it's just raining across the Ohio Valley, the Midwest, getting into the interior Northeast. Very strong winds for the Delmarva again, the Jersey Shore, 40, 50, 55 mile per hour wind gusts. And then we get into the Northeast. Very, very strong winds begin to blow across these higher elevations. It's going to be some very strong winds once again once again out in southern New England, the coastal regions of New Hampshire, Maine Saturday morning, the down east areas of Maine getting into Saturday afternoon, where we could certainly see 60, 70 mile per hour wind gust. And then, we might end up getting some blizzard warnings off this lake effect snow that gets gets pumped out across Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. Look at these winds as the flow really shifts over this region. Snow begins to fall. 30, 40, 45 mile per hour wind gusts with these lake effect snow bands popping off Lake Erie, Lake Ontario. Pretty significant event, folks. It really is. So, how much rain could fall, moisture in general? I mean, it's not going to be as much of a soaker as what we saw with the last one, but a good 1 to 2 inches of rain in the Northeast, southern New England. But up here, it could be rain and snow. And really, speaking of this snowfall, this is snow between now and tomorrow night. But this is the National Weather Service forecast for snow. See how it increases as we get all the way through Saturday evening. So it's just starting to pick up on this lake effect snow. But between now and Saturday evening, another several inches for the state of Maine, unless you live along the coastal regions, northern Vermont, New Hampshire, Adirondacks, another several inches are certainly on the way with this. So let's talk a little bit about this Arctic air now. And I'm not going to dive deep into the Arctic air in this section of the video, but I am going to show it a little bit because it plays into what I'm about to talk about. And here it comes. Look at those cold temperatures. We're getting into Friday morning, Friday afternoon here. We're getting into Saturday morning, Saturday afternoon. We're getting into Sunday morning. Look at those low temperatures. Well below zero up here, locked into the tundra. And then we're getting into Sunday afternoon. I want to stop it right here. Potential high temperatures Sunday. Check out what it looks like. Keep your eyes on this. And then we're going to go on and switch to our winter storm threat. So this is our storm system moving out. We're going to be done with this. Make sure this is in motion. This is going to move out, takes on that negative tilt. This moves on out. Arctic air funnels in, which is what I just showed you. Begins to dive down. You got a little bit of energy associated with it. Remember, Arctic air is very shallow. It's very dry. It squeezes out every little bit of moisture in the atmosphere. So a lot of times, model runs do not pick up on moisture associated with Arctic boundaries. Sometimes you can have like some light snow, light freezing drizzle when it doesn't even show up on radar. So I want you to keep that in mind when this Arctic boundary shifts south. It happens a lot. But we get into Sunday morning. Arctic air is all the way down here. You're not going to be able to see it on the Vort map. But what I want you to notice is this right here. You see this energy here, just vibrant yellows, oranges, and reds. That's surging into the southern section of the country here. That is the energy for our winter storm threat as we're getting into Sunday evening and then Monday. And with so much cold air that I just showed you oozing down, okay, with that energy shooting through this exact same area, in the same time frame I'm showing you right here, you're going to get winter weather down here. And sure enough, you look at it, here it is. Let's start off Sunday afternoon about midday. You already have, and I spoke on this just a second ago, you already have some kind of shades of pink down here in Texas. I think we're going to get some freezing drizzle that's, I'm not going to say catch people by surprise, but I could see it all the way down here to Austin, south of Dallas, around Dallas, San Antonio. I mean, I think this Arctic boundary is going to sag that far south. So here it is. Really starts to blossom Sunday afternoon. We got snow on top. It's cold enough on all levels of the atmosphere for snow. And then we have light, maybe moderate freezing rain breaking out across central areas of Texas. It's the European model. Snow up here, freezing rain down here. And to keep this going, folks, and this starts to turn into an all-out winter storm as we're waking up Monday morning. Heavy ice begins to show up in central Texas and northeast Texas, even northwest sections of Louisiana, southern Arkansas. But this is all snow up here, and you'll probably get a wintry mix between sleet, freezing rain, and snow right in the middle somewhere. This isn't a forecast. It's just the European model and what it shows. Snow falling across Arkansas. You start to get into Monday afternoon. Some of this moisture begins to sort of get squashed. It's not heavy moisture on the Euro. But you got freezing rain falling in Dallas, maybe just snow in Dallas. Shreveport, freezing rain. Little Rock, snow. Memphis, snow. Northern sections of Mississippi, snow. And then look how this cold air continues to ooze southward with moisture continues to overrun it. Look at this freezing rain in southeast Texas. It gets freezing rain all the way down to Houston, folks, almost all the way down into the far southern sections of Texas. And look at all this freezing rain Tuesday morning. all the way to almost down to the bayou, pretty much all the way down to Baton Rouge, almost all the way down to Hattiesburg, certainly all the way down to Jackson. Just crazy stuff. Seems like we've seen this at least once a winter over the last few winters in these areas, especially the infamous 2021 February event that you guys, I'm sure, will live on in you guys' memories in Texas forever. But, same thing with the GFS, folks. It's a little bit different. Shows a more consolidated area of heavy snow in eastern Oklahoma, southern sections of Missouri, northern Arkansas, Sunday evening. You're getting into the middle of the night this coming Monday night. Brings a swath of moderate to heavy snow with very cold temperatures falling across Arkansas. It gets moisture back into Texas, but it's a little bit different than the European. The European has, basically wintry weather all the way into central Texas, even southwest Texas. Brings a wintry mix into the Dallas-Fort Worth area sometime late Sunday night into Monday morning. But I think models are kind of underdoing this moisture even in Texas. And then you get this really light kind of round of winter weather falling across areas of the Mid-South, the Mississippi River area, Delta region. And what does it do after that? We start to get into Monday afternoon, starts to pop off some moisture down here in southeast Texas, wintry mix. But, you compare this Monday evening with Monday evening on the Euro, and it's a little bit different. There's a little bit more moisture showing up than this. But in general, kind of the same look. All right, and we keep going, and then, man, it shows freezing rain all the way down to the coastal regions of Louisiana this coming Tuesday morning. It shows a freezing rain event all the way down to New Orleans in the middle of the day next Tuesday. Arctic air, man, it does some wild stuff. And then this pulls on off. So what I want to show you is this. These are temperatures around 9 a.m. Monday morning in Arkansas. Notice this in the low 20s in southern Arkansas. It's in the low teens to upper single digits in northwest Arkansas. All right. Let's show you what the European is showing. And we're going to have to go back. Well, we can probably do it here. Let's show you what the European is showing for the same time frame. It's probably going to switch to the 18Z, and I knew it was. So same time frame, let's go on and show it to you right here. So remember what I just showed you the temperatures? What does the temperature show for this? Look, there's the snow falling over Arkansas about 9 a.m. Monday morning. What do the temperatures look like for the same time frame? And hopefully it's going to cooperate with me. So you got winter weather falling over Arkansas, and I'm just giving Arkansas as an example with extremely low temperatures. So even if you get a light event out of this, this is going to cause major issues, especially for the South, because it's going to be falling at very cold temperatures. Now, what about the snowfall signal from this? Here it comes. This is from the system that we just broke down like 20 minutes ago because this video is incredibly long. There's the signal for this system coming up. See how everything just kind of blossomed out of nowhere? And this is just the blend of all models. This is going to stay reasonable. It's going to stay conservative. Not a huge event, but brings a few inches of snow falling in very cold temperatures across Missouri, Arkansas, even a signal in northeast sections of Texas, and some snow into Tennessee. And we'll talk more on Tennessee and Kentucky here in a second. What about the icing from this? Watch this. Watch how some ice pops up right there on the southern areas of the snow. Not a huge signal, but you got a few 1/100ths of an inch of ice showing up down here. So there's an ice signal for this too. Now what about for the eastern U.S.? Here comes the system. We already talked about Arkansas. Let's talk about Tennessee and everybody else now. Snow begins to overspread the state of Tennessee, even areas of Kentucky, all the way to West Virginia Monday afternoon with a cold Arctic boundary sagging south. Look at all this moisture blossoming up. You're thinking, well, man, if this Arctic boundary would get a move on, we could get winter weather in Georgia and the Carolinas. Well, it just doesn't. And we'll dive deeper on why it does that when we can get past this storm signal system that's right out ahead of us. But there's a reason why it really does that. We just need to really fine-tune this system that we're talking about right now before we dive super deep in the specifics. But basically, when you got such a push of cold, such a push of cold air that digs down to the south like that, it really causes the southeast ridge just to flex a little bit, which basically causes this moisture and a low to pop down here, and it just kind of cuts a little bit too fast before the cold air moves in. That's why what I'm about to show you, it doesn't show any winter weather for Georgia and the Carolinas. But we're getting into like Tuesday morning. It is showing freezing rain now. There's been some trends that has oozed this winter weather a little bit closer to the Carolinas and other areas. But look at this freezing rain that breaks out across areas of North Carolina. This is light to moderate snow in this area, falling at very cold temperatures, very cold temperatures. Freezing rain down here in central Mississippi, even southern Mississippi. The Euro scoots this on down, begins to pop a pretty strong low out here, brings moderate to potentially heavy snow across D.C., the Delmarva area, into the New York City region midday Tuesday. Look at the ice in between. This is falling at very cold temperatures, folks. And you keep this going, and this really starts to pop a pretty nice low that would bring a pretty decent snow event in very cold temperatures. This is not some marginal 30, 31 degree event. This would be snow falling at bitterly cold temperatures because the Arctic air is moving in, and this would have no issue if something like this was to happen, being all snow from the I-95 corridor in the Mid-Atlantic points north and northeast. You're just struggling down here. But you stay all winter weather in like the northwest portion of North Carolina. It's just that the moisture really doesn't start to really get going until it gets into like eastern Kentucky, West Virginia, points east and northeast really. But I mean, look, all the way down to Birmingham. Wintry mix sometime Tuesday evening, and then this really gets strong and turns into an all-out winter storm for like Boston and southern New England and heads on out. What about the GFS? GFS is different here, folks. Here it goes. You're thinking it's about to be the same. Snow moving into Arkansas, snow moving across the Mid-South, and you're thinking it's going to do something kind of similar, but it basically takes moderate snow, weakens it to like light snow falling in very cold temperatures Monday morning, and you're thinking, okay, where'd the moisture go? Well, I mean, that's pretty much it until something else begins to pop up here, and I'll show you what I mean. Light snow falling across the Mid-South, wintry mix still down here in Louisiana, and then it tries to get something going right into here, and we're getting into Tuesday morning of next week. You got winter weather showing up in southern Mississippi, south central Alabama, all the way up into the Appalachian Mountains. And then it keeps on going. The Arctic air is finally moving in, and we got freezing rain starting to show up south of Atlanta Tuesday afternoon. Freezing rain all the way down to Mobile, Alabama. But look how this area right here begins to increase. Snow begins to fall in Richmond, the Delmarva region, and then it begins to look like you have some development of some type of low. Snow's falling in the Delmarva. Light rain down here in South Carolina, Georgia, but it's falling probably in the 30s. And look at this freezing rain still showing up down here. And you're thinking, man, is this about to do something? And it does, but it's just too little too late. It's snowing out on Cape Cod, and this heads on out. You see, there's a big difference there. So what about the signal here? Well, that's the big storm system right here, and this is our storm signal on the blend of all models for the one behind it. Not very high, but certainly there. You see how this area right in here increased? Not a very strong signal, but it's there. What about the kind of the ice signal from this? Here it comes creeping up. There's a little bit of an ice signal right into here, but it's not much. It really isn't. So we'll continue to discuss the details on that. That's gonna be a wild. I'm gonna be fat. I love watching Arctic boundaries and moisture. It hardly ever works out east of the Appalachian Mountains, but we're gonna continue to figure that one out for you folks. Cold air is coming, folks. You know, the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook, 16th through the 20th, issued today. Cold air is here to stay, even if you don't get winter weather next week. It's going to be a very cold week coming up. And then you look even past this. Look at the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. The 18th through the 24th issued today. Below average temperatures all the way through the 24th expected for the central and eastern U.S. And you like to see this stuff. Above average, well, you know I got people from the west tuning in, but if you're a winter weather fan in the east, you'd like to start to see above average temperatures showing out west, because it tells us there's a ridge popping out west. And it makes me really like a time frame coming up around the 20th that I keep mentioning often. But as far as forecast low temperatures in the blend of all models, look at that Sunday morning across the middle of the country, just well below zero, single digits just south of that. We get into Monday morning, and there's a chance, and look at Tuesday morning, below 0 all the way down to northern Arkansas. I think it could be colder than this if there's snow on the ground. It helps basically act as it basically just enhances the cold air. You could end up being a few degrees colder than what's forecast in these areas. But very cold temperatures across the core of the country. This is doing nothing but helping the eastern U.S. if we can actually get some energy, because the energy that flies through, it basically can inject more cold air into these systems that maybe models don't show. But look, 4 degrees in Memphis, 7 in Little Rock, 8 degrees in Dallas-Fort Worth area, well below freezing all the way down to the Gulf coastline. And then it begins to moderate somewhat, but still very cold, single digits still, all the way down to Tennessee. And then you finally moderate a little bit. Then we could get another cold air mass that drops down. We're watching that. It could be 2. And then we'll take a look at the eastern U.S. Monday morning, Tuesday morning, Wednesday morning. Stop the screen if you need to. Look at these cold temperatures getting all the way down to northern Florida, well into the teens across all of Alabama. And then we are getting into Thursday morning, very cold morning, and then it begins to moderate. And then we could have another cold period coming up for next weekend that we need to watch. I do want to watch a period coming up if areas of the east and southeast don't score from this system coming up. I like this period right here. We got a ridge popping up out west, and we got a pretty solid signal across the east for storminess, where the trough really digs down to the eastern U.S. I like this because energy will come down. Okay, this ain't going to work, so we're not going to bother with this. This video has been very, very finicky. I do apologize for the sloppiness. But we're watching energy that will dive down right here and that can link up with some of this Arctic air on top of it. So I really like the period of the 19th through the 21st for something in the eastern U.S. that isn't really showing up on the models right now. But this is kind of the last hurrah before we're done with this pattern. I think we'll enter a period going into maybe the last maybe 7 days of January, maybe between like the 25th through the 30th, something like that, where we will have a warm-up across the eastern U.S. before we enter a very favorable setup, I think, for February. So, guys, I do apologize for the sloppiness of that video. I think it was just a mixture between I already had the panels pulled up, then I had to walk away from the video for about an hour and come back to it, and all the panels had to reload. So we'll definitely get the flow back going tomorrow morning. But thank y'all for bearing with me. God bless all y'all, and have a great night.